Happy Monday, fight fans. This is the DAZN Boxing Show. I go by the name of Barak.
And I'm Barak, the boxing bully.
Huge fight weekend back in the O2 Arena in London. KSI does it. That's right. 2 fights, same night. Both ended by knockout. We'll get into all of that right here on the opening bell. You know, Barak, I was actually entertained this entire fight night. Obviously, we'll get into some stuff with Jared Anderson and Pedrosa and Comey a little later on. But first, let's talk about the actual entertainment factor of the Zone X series. The fact that sometimes us as fight fans, we don't get the knockouts that we want. I mean, I recall going through a whole fight night without seeing any knockouts in some boxing cards. This past weekend, I think it had a lot to do with the lack of experience from some of the guys, but we did get entertaining knockouts throughout that DAZN Boxing X series. But the question is this, Barak, and I'll pose this to you. Were both opponents that KSI faced this past Saturday enough to let the boxing world know, at least the YouTube boxing world know, that he can be competitive with guys like Jake Paul, with the level, with the lack of experience that both fighters have? I just don't know if those questions were answered. Nevertheless, if a guy doesn't belong in there with you, you get him out of there, and that's what KSI did.
First of all, I don't know what the YouTube audience thinks. I don't know how they think. You can put both of those two opponents of KSI together and still not get half of Jake Paul. Like, no, that didn't answer any questions.
Okay.
Let me tell you, truthfully, I probably subconsciously did not want to like this event because I feel like sometimes it makes a mockery of real boxing. But then I also got to tell myself that whoever steps in the ring, whether it's the Zone X series or boxing or celebrity boxing or anything, you're still subject to the same dangers that the boxers that I respect that have been doing this since birth are subject to. So that part I have to respect. And I have to tell you that the only thing intriguing about this thing, and it kind of shocked the heck out of me, it's very intriguing when you see YouTubers who are not supposed to be skillful, not supposed to know how to fight, and then they shock you with a skill set that you're like, oh my God, this guy must have an amateur pedigree, or this, like a couple of guys on that event really can box, and that shocked the hell out of me. Dean the Great,
yeah,
he looked pretty good getting his knockout, but then he tried to knock himself out doing a backflip.
well, I'm glad you brought him up, Barak. I mean, you said that he looked great. To me, he was the most skilled throughout the entire
Did I say great? I thought I said he looked good.
No, you said great, but he looked very good, and he looked to me.
No, I said Dean the Great probably looked good.
Oh, well,
he put great in his own name.
It seemed like he would have, maybe he has amateur pedigree, like you said, or maybe at a younger age he took up the sport.
Well, they said that he, he's been doing this for a while, meaning like filming himself, fighting fans, giving them gloves, fighting them. So he's been studying the sport for a while. It definitely showed. He had patience. He had the fundamentals,
Yeah.
and one of my favorites of the night was Salt Poppy, baby.
So Poppy had a little sauce with his, huh?
Oh, absolutely. Skill. I mean, you talk about skill set.
Yeah.
That was a total mismatch, though. And that's the thing. That's the part. The way he knocked out his opponent, Andy, this is a very, very dangerous sport. That's why I don't like to play with it. You know what I mean? But when you play with fire, you get burnt.
Now, let's get into KSI, his fight against Swarmz. Like, apparently Swarmz never really put on a pair of boxing gloves before getting prepared for this fight. He doesn't have any history in fighting. And it showed. I mean, he kept twirling around. It's funny, Todd Grissom said he's a human carousel because he kept turning around throughout the fight. So being the fact that I knew he hadn't had any experience, I expected something like that. But going into the main event, when KSI was fighting a quote-unquote professional fighter with 7 professional fights, even the broadcast, I don't remember who it was, they said whoever put this match together, they were throwing shots at the matchmaker for that one.
He said it needs to be fired. He's making people lose their jobs over here.
Right, I don't know what was going on there. But in any case, Pineda didn't look like he was a professional fighter at all. And it brought me to thinking, when people say Jake Paul needs to fight a professional fighter, I kept thinking, the foolishness that goes out there when people say Jake Paul needs to fight a professional fighter. Well, there you have it. That was a professional boxer who had 7 fights. So if Jake Paul knocks a guy out like that, will we be happy with that? Will we be happy? And I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about those that say Jake needs to fight a professional fighter. I would think that Tyron Woodley would knock out Pineda as well. So when you say professional boxer, please let's talk, let's be more specific as to what type of professional boxer.
100%, but understand
Swarmz
something.
were, in my opinion, Swarmz put up a better fight than Luis Pineda. Swarmz were
I damn sure wouldn't say that. I think they both was trash, but
yes,
I think maybe Swarmz would have beat Pineda. Who knows? Who cares? But what I'm saying is that regardless of the fact, Jake Paul does need to fight a real boxer. You know what I'm saying? Because he's in the sport of boxing. So that goes without saying.
All right, but isn't he a real boxer? That's what I'm asking you.
I do say he is.
Pineda's a real boxer.
Of course he's a real boxer, but some real boxers really suck. Some real boxers are not that talented, and some real boxers are just journeymen who purposely come in the ring to get a paycheck and to get knocked out or to lose, and they know they're going to lose, and they probably have no desire to win at all, and their record shows it. So maybe that's
so I'm asking you, if Jake Paul knocks out a guy that's coming in there to lose, but it's a professional boxer, then you'll be satisfied.
No, it's not about that. It's about if you're in the sport and what you say matters. You can't say, oh, I'm going to fight Canelo in a couple of years if you haven't started fighting boxers. That's all I'm trying to say. So yes, I'm looking forward to him fighting boxers. Now, I also give him credit that he tried to fight twice. And he tried to fight Rahman, which you get a bunch of credit for that, but he's just having bad luck. Yeah. He hasn't fought a boxer yet. So in order to legitimize himself, of course he has to fight a real boxer. But I'm not saying, but I do understand you have to start at the bottom. So yes, those are the kind of guys he should fight.
Speaking of Jake Paul,
him trying to fight Tommy Fury is a step above Pineda.
Yeah, one last, of course, but the actual, and I think, like I mentioned, I think Tyron Woodley is a step up against Pineda, but even though he's not a professional boxer, but people would say they would rather him fight Pineda.
I agree.
It's mind-boggling to me. But one last thing before we go, you mentioned Jake Paul. Before leading up to this fight, KSI was calling out Jake Paul, had a lot to say about fighting him, but after the fight, he did not mention Jake Paul's name as far as wanting to fight him, which is very interesting to me.
You know why? Because his warm-up was Swarmz. Now, Swarmz was swarming around in a circular motion. He was on his bicycle, it's more like a motorcycle or maybe a merry-go-round. That's not the kind of fight that prepares you for Jake Paul. That's not the kind of fight that prepares you for anybody.
Right, but he was calling him out before the fight.
See, that's the thing. And that's what I said before this fight. I said, hey, you fighting 2 guys, it's groundbreaking. And it's smart for your crowd because the place, the O2 Arena, was packed. And that's amazing that they have this crowd. Young kids that I knew, that I spoke to the next day in church, 18 to 20-something years old, they all knew about the fight. They're asking me, Barak, you seen the fight? They never asked me that before, ever. And it's been big fights. They never asked me about a Canelo fight. So they have an audience, you know what I mean? But I'm saying, if you're going to talk about Jake Paul, then you're going to have to fight him. You can't talk about him if you're also saying that you're not ready for him. Then you got to stop talking about, and that's what makes
that's my point. Bad. That's my point exactly. He was talking a lot about him before he got back in the ring, and I do want to mention Brooklyn's own Slim, who scored a big knockout, which in my opinion was a knockout of the night, not the Saul Poppy one. So yeah, it was a very entertaining show.
I like that Saul Poppy one because it was skillful. Slim, looked wild and crazy and reckless.
But the knockout was more dramatic. The head snapping back, it was, in my opinion, it was a bit of knockout. Nevertheless, look, it was an entertaining night, and we're doing it again. That's right, October 15th, another DAZN X series. And guess what? We mentioned Jake Paul. Remember his supposed potential opponent, Hasim Rahman Jr. He'll be fighting Vitor Belfort. That's right, at the DAZN X Series, October 15th. That's going to be very interesting. I guess he went from, I don't know. I know that Hasim Rahman Jr. wants to compete at professional level, higher rankings. He wants to fight for titles, big fights. But this is what was presented at him, and he's taking advantage of the opportunity. I like it. I like to see what he can do against a Vitor Belfort. So I'm excited about that. That's going to be back on, on the zone.
Fighting Jake Paul wasn't going to increase him in the rankings.
Right.
But he knew it was going to increase his popularity. And that's what he's doing right now.
Right.
You increase your popularity, you can get big fights. And that Jake Paul shows you that right now, that he's never fought a boxer, but he's popular and he's earning to be on pay-per-view, whether he fight a boxer or not. And that's what Rahman is trying to do. Now, it's not going to be on pay-per-view, so you guys can relax and say, hey, but, you know, these guys are not as popular as these YouTubers. But Rahman is a real fighter, and we need somebody to get revenge for what Vitor Belfort did to our legend, Evander Holyfield.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And that was, when this fight was announced, that was the only thing on my mind. I like the fact that the zone brought Hasim Rahman out to the KSI fight to actually announce the fight. So we'll look forward to that. In other news, I like to talk about this young man, Barak, because in my opinion, he has the potential to be the next great American heavyweight star in terms of what he does inside the ring, his personality outside the ring. He's 23 years old. He's a knockout artist. He does it with skill, confidence, and his name is Jared Anderson. He fought this past weekend on ESPN, and he actually faced, I don't want to say adversity, but he actually faced a guy that wanted to fight back, wanted to strike back when it came in there to win the fight. So he had to weather a little storm, but then he was able to score the knockout as he does so well. So congrats to Jared Anderson. I'm excited to what's to come for him as the potential next big heavyweight star in the sport.
Absolutely. On that same show, you had Richard Torres Jr. Now, I'm only bringing him up because young guy from the Olympics, devastating knockout, just to show you how dangerous this sport is. I hope that his opponent is okay. But Jared Anderson, yes, definitely got the skill set, but we just going to have to see as he steps up in quality and competition. We're going to have to see how he deals with those big boys, man. Today is the era of the giants. And yes, skills pay the bills. But it's funny that we're saying a guy that's 6'4", 240 pounds is small compared to these guys of today, you know. But yeah, as far as skill set, yeah, absolutely. But that main event was something. Even though it ended in a draw between Pedraza and Comey, it was a good fight. Very, very entertaining.
A phenomenal fight from beginning to end. I personally felt that Pedraza should have got the nod, but it was so close. There's nothing really to complain about. Most people, if you look on Twitter, on Instagram, most people are saying that they're happy with the draw. They can deal with the draw. They're okay with the draw. And generally, when you see that, on social media, it generally means that, the fight was very, very tight and very, very close. So good luck to those guys moving forward. I know this was a make it or break it fight. At least that's the way it was being pushed. But it was an entertaining fight in a draw, so I guess both guys will get a chance to do it again. Maybe not with each other, but they're still in the mix because they both, did well in the fight. So
100% they're in the mix, but this is the thing. It was a close fight, maybe 7-5 either way, but I was very happy with the draw. I think Comey hurt Pedraza a couple of times, but Pedraza's finish so strong, it's hard to just give the fight to Comey. I think they need to fight each other. You said it was a make it or break it fight. Get past each other first, then see if you can get another title shot.
I like that idea. All right, that's our show for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace and love. Stay safe. We're out of here.